What's up, my dudes? It's time to get started on the S13 front end suspension swap on the Mark II, and we're going to start off with the subframe.
Now I am a little embarrassed to admit, but I did misplace the brackets that hold the rack in place. They're somewhere in my messy workspace. For 2025, I'm going to make that a new thing to make sure I work in a clean space, because I put things down thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to find it later or I'm going to remember, but no, it never gets found. But for now, we can get the subframe in and get the engine set down, because right now it's just being supported on wood and the rest is being hung up by this engine hoist. These are OEM style motor mounts that I got off of Rock Auto, and I'm not going to tighten them all down all the way because I want a little bit of wiggle room so I can get them to fit inside the motor mount bracket. The subframe is bolted down on both sides of the frame rail. Now I gotta tighten down the motor mount, and then I can remove the wood from underneath the car and get rid of this engine brace. Alright, the passenger side was a little bit harder to do because right above where the nut needs to be tightened, the oil filter and the housing are in the way, but with the wrench you can get to it no problem. This whole conversion came at a perfect time because during the last track event that I went to, this brake hose actually ended up rupturing and I lost all brake pressure and fluid, so it's been out of commission ever since. This XA tension rod bracket has to go because we need to make room for the S13 power brace brackets, and you just remove it by taking off 1, 2, 3, and 4 17mm bolts. I think now might be a good time to put on the lower control arm. Man, these are so nice. I feel so bad about putting them on, but they got a job to do. And S13 lower control arms should fit in the X8 subframe with a little bit of persuasion. Alright, next up is a front coilover. I know that it's a common practice for XA owners to use straight up S13 coilovers, but to get them retrofitted into the XA shock towers, they have to drill into the shock tower and get the studs on the top hats aligned, or they'll swap over their XA top hats onto their S13 coilover. and I didn't want to have to do either of those, so I said let's get X8 coilovers because the X8 top hat has a really weird triangle shape. It's not a perfect triangle and it's not a perfect circle either like S13's. So now the weirdly shaped triangle top hat on for the X8 coilover. Fits perfect on the X8 shock tower. And like I said, I did call Silvers to ask them if they were able to put an S13 bottom mount for the S13 Knuckle, and they did confirm that the damper body is the same for all their coilovers, so this would be able to fit onto their X8 coilover no problem. Now it's time for the Knuckle. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. Alright, next up is the hub. But before we throw this on, we gotta lube up and put some high temp grease because we got metal on metal and we don't want to go and dry. This is gonna stay on here temporarily like this because I forgot to order the washer, the special washer that goes in here and the nut that goes onto the end of the spindle right here. So I mean, it doesn't really seem to go anywhere, but just to be safe, I'm just gonna stop it right here. I don't want to make this video too long, so I think I'm going to be splitting things up in a couple parts, and I still have a lot left to do. I still have to mount the rack and put on the inner and outer tie rods, put on the rotor, calipers, and brake pads. And probably the most difficult thing is mounting up the tension rod bracket. Since this bracket was never meant to be in this car, the holes aren't going to align almost at all, so I got to figure out where I'm going to put it and how I'm gonna drill and bolt it into the frame rail and further up ahead on the lower radiator support. Luckily, I do have an S13 that I can get measurement references off of, so I will be doing that in the next video, and hopefully I get in the right spot, because if not, I can run into issues of binding, and that's the last thing I want on this car. But that might not be for a while because I am going to be out of town for a bit, and best believe as soon as I get back, it's full steam ahead on this thing. So until that happens, I really appreciate you guys tuning in.